Right on, right on. All right, man. It's good to be here, man. I ain't got to teach in a minute. I'm excited. It's been definitely a highlight of my week. It's been a tough week for me and my family, man. It's been one of them weeks for the ages. But I know God will always provide. He always provides and will continue to provide. So I'm just excited about what God is going to do in this season. And I hope that this message is encouraging for everybody. Um, Tonight we're going to talk about a guy by the name of Elijah. It's interesting to note that fear is always going to be a part of the equation. I don't care what kind of ministry it is. I don't care what type of place you are in life. There's always going to be some fear associated with it. And you deal with fear in a number of ways, but I guess, commercially, or it really boils down to a few things, right? Fight, flight, freeze. And many times when it comes to fear, many of us are dwindled down to those three responses. And so tonight we're going to talk about that and give a little background in the text, just kind of give you some idea. So Elijah was basically on the run because he had a bounty on his head in First Kings chapter 19. We're going to talk about that and deal with that and see how it relates. So let's go. Don't lose yourself in victory. I wanted to start with more of a transparent story about myself. Um, Sometimes smiles can hide the deepest fears and pains. This was one of the first sermons I preached after I had been terminated from my first ministry assignment. It was at a lectureship in Arizona. Did not know what the future held. My contract was canceled with the school district. Um, I no longer was the senior minister at the Church of Christ of the Vineyard. Yet God kept me in front of folks preaching. And the opportunities kept rolling in. I'm looking for jobs. In this moment right here, here I am, a father of two, about to be three pretty soon. Here I am in this picture, working nights at Chick-fil-A. Everybody said, "Go get your degree, and you'll do great things." And now I was essentially doing that just so we have money to pay a few bills in the meantime. But what I wanted to know is a place of wilderness for me. And albeit this captions a smile, nonetheless, it was one of the more frightening times in my life. And so be aware of the smiles that people have because sometimes they could be hiding some of their biggest fears. But it's also a testament to who God is because even in the midst of things that you're fearful about, God still provides. So running away from problems is never the answer. You got to stand tall. You got to stand in the midst of your issue and keep rocking because eventually that opportunity is going to come through. And so with Elijah, we find out his mistake was running away. And his mistake was also arrogance because he thought he was the only one in the land that was righteous or that was just. And God soon had to let him know that even if you're not here tomorrow, my plan still continues. So First Kings chapter 19, verse 5, the Bible says, Then as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him and said to him. So basically Elijah, he is on the run, right? So he had two cool victories, man. He approached Ahab. These people were bowing to Baal. He said, "Look, you get your crew, I'm gonna get mine. We both gonna lay the sacrifice on the altar, right? And then we gonna set it up real right. You gonna call on your God, I'm gonna call on mine. Whichever fire comes up first, that's who is the true and living God." So he had a victory, right? He went all in, right? He pushed all his chips to the middle of the table, and God came through. Then after that, right, we see after he have a conversation with Obadiah, comes back to the realization, in fact, oh snap, it's a famine, right? So then rain comes down, so much rain that he tells Ahab and he tells all these other people as well that if you don't get down this mountain in time, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to make it. So the famine essentially ends because of his faith, right? And so what I need us to understand tonight is that victory sometimes leads to discouragement, right? So Elijah had just come off two historic victories. I'm talking about overtime victories. I'm talking about victories in which it was 4th and 1. There's 2 seconds left. We about to go to the AFC, the NFC championship, and he kicks it right down the middle, right? He comes back the next week and throws a game-winning touchdown, or does like Spencer Dinwiddie did last night and shot a 3 to win the game, right? And so this idea of winning, right, is really important, because in life we want to win, right? We do want to win, but the problem is that a lot of times victory can lead to discouragement. Because when you get that first loss and you don't know how to handle it, it can lead you down a long road of wilderness if you don't know how to bounce back from a loss. And so the defeat of Baal and the answered prayer of rain. So we got to ask ourselves the question tonight: how do we deal with discouragement after spiritual victory? Right? You preached a bomb sermon, right? You taught a cold lesson, right? You had a Bible study with somebody, and then they said, "Hey, you know what? I believe in that. I want to be baptized," right? And then boom, all of a sudden, here you are, right? You done prayed for this, you done talked to God about this, you done journaled about this, right? You just been giving your all to disciplining yourself for this victory, and then all of a sudden discouragement ensues. There's a few people who understand this. Job understood this, right? Job understood, man, he was victorious. He was righteous, right? He had kids, he had land, he had paper. And then all of a sudden, he hits a place of loss, magnanimous loss, right? The same thing with all of many people you can think about in the Bible, right? We know that it's Women's History Month, right? We've talked about a lot of people on this call, whether it's Queen Vashti, or it's Hagar, or it's Sarah, or it's Rahab, whoever it may be. Man, loss is a part of the equation. And oftentimes when you don't know how to lose, it can feel like the wilderness. So check this out, right? 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 1 through 3. The Bible says something really important. The Bible says that Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, right? So Ahab, he catches this L. He goes back and tells Jezebel, and she was raw. She was killing prophets left and right? So how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elisha, saying, "So let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life." I want you to underline this word life in your mind. "As the life of one of them by tomorrow, about this time." And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. I mean, essentially, basically, Jezebel big wormed Elijah, right? He said, "You or your homie don't have my money, I'm killing both of y'all," right? And so basically, when you look at this situation, Elijah has a couple of things to do. He can fight, he can flee, or he can freeze. So let's see what he did. He doesn't have a plan. So you get this knee-jerk reaction. And essentially the points that I want to leave you with are, when we allow fear to prompt us to make irrational decisions, we find ourselves in a place of wilderness. So think about it, right? You defeat Baal, right? You bring an end to famine, and now you got a bounty on your head. So not really knowing what to do, he ran. And so how do we align this with today, right? Traumatic experiences will lead us to doing one of 3 things, right? Fight, flight, or freeze. But I'm here to tell you tonight that running away from your problems is a race that you will never win. So we got to make sense of all of this, because we all experience traumatic issues or problems. If you've ever been the victim of like sexual assault, right? That thwarts your plans. Now things that didn't trigger you before now trigger you. If you've gone through a bad breakup, right? Things trigger you. If you're recovering from some sort of addiction, right? There's things that trigger you. And so when our thinking brain goes offline, right? A lot of times we make decisions without a plan. And we cannot do that as Christians, as people of God, as disciples of Jesus Christ. We always have to know where to turn so we don't find ourselves up under the broom tree with no plan, running for our life, begging God to kill us. So the 4 responses to fear, right? You got fight, flight, freeze, and face. And you see this wrench right here by face, because facing your problem is going to take some work. right? It's going to take some defense. It's going to take some connection, right? In order to face your problems, you're going to have to you're going to have to be connected to God, right? There's no way on God's green earth that you will be able to face your problems without connecting to God. No way. But a lot of us, we're in a period of fighting stuff, right? We're attacking, we're angry, we're blaming, mistreating folks, we're dumping on people close to us because we're having a hard time holding ourselves accountable. And some of us are just running, right? We're hiding. We're hiding behind social media. We're in denial, right? We're avoiding. We're sabotaging, right? We want that new job, but we don't feel worthy, so we sabotage the interview, right? Feelings are growing in a relationship, and so we sabotage it, right? We leave them on red for like an hour and a half, just to let them know that we're not thirsty, right? Or we're freezing. And I know this is mine. A lot of times, fearful situations, I'll freeze. I'll just shut down. I'll justify and rationalize my procrastination. But we got to be able to face our issues, even if we've ran to the middle of the wilderness. But I want to leave you with this too, and this point is that running to the wilderness, thinking too highly of yourself, is not devoid of consequences. All right, so there's always going to be a consequence for any of these reactions, whether it's positive or negative. There's always going to be a consequence. And so here's the deal. A lot of times we're discouraged not because of the situation, but because our faith changes. So here's the deal. Don't allow victory to change how your faith operates, right? You got the new position, cool. You're in a good space, cool. Therapy's working, cool. But I want us to understand that that's not a time to get laxed. That, I really need us to know that, the enemy is willing to go to great lengths to ruin your faith. That's what I want us to understand. The enemy wasn't working in Jezebel just because Elijah was this prophet. He wanted to destroy his faith. And he knew that he could destroy his faith if he threatened him with his life. So if God can end famine and protect him from Ahab, he could protect him from Jezebel. Here's the crazy part about the situation. And to me, when you look at this text, Elijah's a little cocky. He's a little arrogant, right? He starts mocking them when their God doesn't come. And so we got to be careful that our mockery doesn't lead to us running from a place of fear. So his fear essentially replaced his faith. So he ran for his life. And so the problem we face is saving ourselves versus giving ourselves. When we just celebrated commercially Black History Month, right? I'm Black every day of the week, but commercially we celebrated this. These people didn't become martyrs because they wanted to be heroes. They became martyrs because it became their normality to give themselves. Jesus lived his life giving himself. When you look at people who have been assassinated or killed or lynched or anything dealing with that type of social justice, right? People were not afraid because they were giving of themselves. They knew that their actions had transcendent impact. And when you understand that your actions have transcendent impact, there's nothing that you are afraid of because you know that God always has your back, right? So when we look at this thought process, I really want to focus in on Ezekiel. I'm preaching the series on Ezekiel Church, so if I miss those names, I'm sorry. Elijah, right? Fear can change your thought process. When you look at 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 2 through 4, the Bible says, Then Jezebel sent messenger to Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life, right? So where's Jezebel's focus? Directly on Elijah. As the life of them, who is them? The prophets that she had been killing. By tomorrow about this time, you got 24 hours, bruh, right? And he says, and when he saw that, he arose and did what? Self-preservation. Because now it was no longer about giving himself. It was defeat because he was like, well, if she got rid of all these prophets, then I know she might take care of me. And went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went on a day's journey in the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. Man, if I had time, I would go into the scientific facts about the broom tree. I promise you, God is so intentional in the things that he does. Because see, the broom tree, not only does it provide you with shade, but it also provides you with visible disguise. Because of the way that the leaves sit, it's a big tree, covers a lot of area, but if I'm standing from afar off, I can't really see you up under that broom tree. Man, come on, somebody. And then came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. He says, is it enough now, Lord? Take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Hold on, man. You was just talking a gang of noise because you were victorious. So now, because your life has been threatened, but see, we look at the seed. I like this quote from Warren Wiersbe. He says, sometimes we feel so depressed, right? And essentially says that we wish that God would call us home. Of course, had Elijah really wanted to die, Jezebel would have gladly accommodated him. If he really wanted to die, he just could have got, lace up his sandals and walk right over to Jezebel and say, if you're going to kill me, kill me. But Elijah was not the only one to feel that way. Moses wanted to die. Job wanted to die. Jeremiah wanted to die. Jonah wanted to die rather than go to Nineveh. And it wasn't the answer, and this is not the answer to despair because it is selfish and it doesn't glorify God. The real answer is to die to self, right? And trust God to work things out. Listen, the future is your friend when Jesus is your Lord. And so understand that God always sustains us in the wilderness. What did he do? For time purposes, I didn't post the entire chapter, but just to give you a synopsis. So he's under this tree, and this angel appears. This angel appears not only to sustain him, but to give him enough food to sustain him for a few weeks, right? And so then he gets to this place where he's in the mountain. And as he's in the mountain, what essentially happens is God passes by, right? And shows him his power, right? So I need us to understand all the time that when we look at who God is, sometimes he will bring us to high places so that we can see the magnificence of his power. And so it says, then he lay and slept. Suddenly an angel touched him and said, arise and eat. Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came back the second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. So he arose and ate and drank and went in the strength of the food 40 days and 40 nights as far as Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. Right? Understand the challenges, church, they never stop. Right? Sometimes God will allow you to ascend higher heights so you have a better view of him. No matter where we are, God has the ability to strengthen us and sustain us. God could have sustained him where he was and also where he ran to. And so, but our faith has to reflect that. Our faith can't change no matter the circumstance. No matter if we're in front of Ahab and we know this sacrifice is going to work, or if Jezebel has put a bounty on our head. But the wilderness will deter you. That's why the wilderness is so discouraging. That's why our focus has to be on God no matter where we are in life, right? So, we have to move from a place of selfishness to selflessness. The issue with Elijah was he went from selfless to selfish. Note the sequence in the text, right? Jezebel said, your life, right? Then he said, I need to preserve my life, right? Then it said, went from your life to his life to my life. Where does he mention God in this part? He doesn't, because his focus isn't where it should be. He even wished that his life would end, not in a sacrificial manner of martyrdom, but out of fear. And it's ironic that he says this after he just encouraged Obadiah to go back. So this was a confession of pride and defeat. So listen, y'all, be careful when you think you're the most faithful person in the room. God has a way of showing us that we aren't as great as we think we are. Watch this. The Lord said to him, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive, man, you ran to the wilderness because you were afraid. God gonna send you to the wilderness to appoint and anoint some other folk that's going to take your place, since you think God don't have nobody but you. He said, anoint Hazael as king over Syria. Also, you shall anoint Jehu, the son of Nimshi, as king over Israel, and Elisha, the son of Shaphat, and Abel Mahola, you shall anoint as prophet in your place. You shall anoint as prophet in your place. Now, I want you to think about that. Because of fear, now look what you got to do. Go commission your replacement. Since you think my power can't sustain you and you want to die, what I've gifted you with, I'm going to just take. Because God don't need no scary people on the team, man. He didn't give us a spirit of fear. He said it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. And if you read about Jehu, he was a bad man. Real bad brother. And whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elijah will kill. Another bad brother. Yet I have reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. How you gonna lead and you afraid of what you try to tell people to abstain from? It don't work like that. It don't work like that. So what do we do here, right? We can't let victories get to our head. God lets us know that he has the ability to be powerful in a still small voice, and everything does not have to be big and dramatic. When he was chilling in that cave, man, the Lord is passing by. The Lord is passing by. We're not irreplaceable. God's work will always go on. No matter how good you are at it, God's work will go on. And God already has somebody prepared to take Elijah's place. He has 7,000 people on the roster. 7,000. So that's what I wanted to share with you all tonight. So look, it's imperative that we understand that we're never too big to be replaced, and our faith should not change because of a fearful situation. If nothing else, our faith should grow and should be stronger. So if you're in a wilderness situation right now, take some time. Take some time to really assess your situation. If it's a place that's unknown to you, take some time to assess the situation and find out what you're doing. Am I freezing? Am I fleeing? Am I fighting? All right, or am I facing? And that's my lesson. Um, so if you have it at this time, if you're new to the call, at this time we open it up for comments, concerns, questions, things of that nature. And so